I had a student some years ago. I think I mentioned this to this class, but when he was 3 years old, his father forced him to have sex with a prostitute. And when he said no, he punched him, slapped him, and kicked him. He's now about 40. He's angry as hell. He hasn't recovered. How do you fix that? You can't. And it's something we've talked about plenty of times in this class. You have a young teacher who is filled with hopes, whose goal is to walk to class and inspire people with philosophy. And you have perhaps a different instructor who's a bit more seasoned, comes to class and says, no, I can't teach anyone anything, let's just have a good time and go home. There are benefits and positives to both. The young instructor plants seeds. The old instructor won't even plant seeds. He just says, F it, F the whole thing. I just talk about coffee and some pastries and then go home. Now, without seeds, it means your future really is doomed. If, on the other hand, there are seeds inside you and by chance you run into the right environment, that person who happens to be, the right person for you, and you're very lucky to be in that particular place and time, that person can nourish the seed that lives inside you and slowly it can blossom. The old teacher, he's just given up, or she. Doesn't care to plant seeds, and if there are seeds, doesn't really care to grow them, nourish them, protect them, just doesn't care. You've seen Rambo 4, maybe Rambo 3, not the one that, the cartel, come back to America to take care of him. It was the one that took place in Burma. So what you have is a bunch of Christians going to Burma, and they want to cross this river. No one is willing to take them across the river because it's a war zone. And they keep telling them that there is only one guy who may be willing to take you across the river, and his name is, what's his name? John Rambo, right? And so John Rambo is a business of, catching snakes, cobras, and then selling them. He has this tiny little boat. And so they find him. And he says, what do you guys want? We're here to heal people, to take care of them, to protect them. And the first thing that Rambo asks is, do you guys have guns? No, we have our Bibles. He says, well, fuck you. Now get lost. He says, don't you know what these people are going through? We're here to help. And he says, fuck the world. That's what he says. And then the man who had requested such a thing from him has a girlfriend, and she happens to be very attractive. And she looks at her man and says, let me have a go at this. So Rambo goes home, and it's raining, and there is this attractive woman waiting for him. Even God falls victim to someone who has beauty, exterior beauty. So Rambo says, ooh, what do you want? Please help us. No, please. Okay. Now remember, the Christians have a goal. And they have this ridiculous moral philosophy about them. Forgiveness, compassion. And when you watch the end of the movie, the very man who was filled with forgiveness and compassion grabs a nice big stone and demolishes this guy in the face, kills him. He can't believe what he's done, but he saved his own life. So what you have is Rambo eventually, gets in the fight and gets dirty and destroys the entire army, Burma's army. The point I'm trying to make is sometimes you have a teacher like John Rambo who's very seasoned, knows the dirtiness of politics, the corruption of politicians, and says, forget it, I'm not serving my country anymore because the country doesn't serve me. I mean, look at all this impeachment stuff. All these people gathering behind closed doors and talking is taxpayer money. Have you seen the homelessness, the poverty in this country? Not a single one of them cares. And so that's what Rambo believes. I'm not going to do anything for these people. He falls victim to someone's beauty. He gets involved because the person to whom he's attracted is now caged, imprisoned by some corrupt army person. He goes to rescue her. His friends die. He gets involved. Sometimes seasoned teachers will get involved if they happen to find themselves attracted to someone, either physically or emotionally or intellectually or spiritually. But if there is no attraction, no one's going to pursue you. You become irrelevant. Philosophy. Ritz? Huh. Tea. Luis.
What people, I guess, want, like, obviously we're trying to better ourselves, but if it gets in the way, like, it's harder to, like, listen to yourself, or put yourself with somebody else. It is.
Forgive me, Luis.
You just said that sometimes people see homeless people and they don't really care. They see the
Politicians.
they see the issue of homelessness. It's because they can't really relate to it.
No, I don't think they don't care. I think you're always going to be moved. There is something about the human being that's always, pushing forward, and they begin to feel. But the feeling doesn't have roots. You're just inspired to help someone. And the truth is, after a while, when you've helped enough people or a few people, you're just exhausted. I mean, go to Telegraph in Berkeley. Start Telegraph on Ashby. It used to be where some bookstore was. I'm not quite sure. It's a coffee shop, I think, now. It's Moses across the street from there. Now, when you go on Telegraph in Berkeley, remember, start at Ashby. That's where the juice begins. You have all these young people sitting with their dogs, playing the guitar. They look bad, smell bad, talk bad. Everything about them is just not very pleasant to the eye or the ear. And you look at them and you say, well, he's young, no parent perhaps, no siblings perhaps, no friends. Their only companion is a dog. Give him $1. But remember, you're going to journey all the way to Bancroft, where the campus is, and put in your pocket $100 just to give people. Initially, you're going to start very innocently. And then little by little you say, well, he's 20, he can get a job. And then you begin to discriminate. Why should I help this young kid? There's an old man there. But why should I help the white old man? I'm going to help the black old man. Why should I help the black old man? I'm going to help the black woman. And all of a sudden, the things you didn't have live inside you, bias, prejudice, bigotedness, all that stuff will eventually come to the surface. And after like 5 minutes of walking the street, you say, I'm just tired of seeing these people, man. I just don't care. You're moved initially, but then you journey towards becoming callous. And you know what callous is? I used to play tennis about 8 hours a day. And that was about maybe 40 years ago, 50 years ago almost. I still have them. Like your meat turns into rock hard stone. And I can put a needle in it and I won't feel pain. And that's what happens to all of us.
Does callous turn into hatred at some point?
I'm sorry?
Does callous turn into hatred at some point?
It turns into nature?
Hatred.
Hatred?
Yeah, I guess today there's some politicians that, as much as they can't relate to homeless people, they go as far as saying that there's a coalition of homeless people. It's positive.
I don't know about those things. All I know is callous is a place where you just don't feel. Yeah. Now, philosophy is philo, which is love. I don't want to talk about that. It's boring. And the next is wisdom. I don't want to talk about that either. I know where to go to get information. And I can pack my tiny, pathetic little brain with information to come to class and spit out knowledge, i.e. information. And I can dazzle you. And you can go home and you say, oh, I got this philosophy teacher. He knows everything about everything. He knows facts, he knows figures, he knows dates, he knows this, about that. Okay. I don't really know what wisdom is. I don't know where to go to get it. Even if I was to find where wisdom is, I wouldn't know if I would be ready for it. And even if I was ready for it, I wouldn't really know how to apply it once I have it. But from what little I know and experienced, as all of us in this class, you're curious. And curiosity drives you to knowing the thing you're curious about, you know. And you get to know a lot of things because you have a lot of curiosities about you. And then there is this place you walk into, or maybe you fall in love and it doesn't go well. And you try to kind of just say, oh, well, Tony Robbins said this, and Eckhart Tolle said that, and, you know, Jordan Peterson said this. But when you're broken, none of these bumper stickers are going to help you. Now, what usually happens to most of us is that we go from one relationship to another without examining the structure, the anatomy of relationships, how they come about, how desires are formed, how a simple desire turns into a complex thing called love, and how attachments are created, and how attachment kind of just lives inside your soul. Okay? None of those things are examined. It seems that the only way to get to wisdom is you go through life, you accumulate information, like the way you accumulate sofas and chairs and tables and pans and pots and all that. At a certain point, you look at your life and you say, there is no space to walk. It's like you have all this information. It just doesn't mean anything anymore. Why? How? Who the hell knows? And then the information and the data you've accumulated over the many, many years of your life, they make you who you are. What is your name? Amir Sabzavari. Where are you from? Iran. That's 5,000 years of culture. What do you do? I'm a professor. All these tiny, pathetic little labels give me a sense of who I am. At this stage now, I don't care about any of that stuff. I need new information, man. I need food. Intellectually, spiritually, emotionally, I'm starving. If someone doesn't give me nourishment, I will die. But wisdom can be found. Now, here's the thing. It seems that you have to go through accumulating information, knowledge, expressing what little you know about the world and yourself to other people until you grow tired. Then you get depressed. You have two options. You either fall in love with the newfound experience, which is, I know everything, nothing means anything anymore for me. You have to fall in love with the darkness that lives inside you. And you can't run away from it. And you know what love is, right? It means that it's no longer curiosity or interest or infatuation or obsession. You're in love. You wake up, they're there. If not physically, imaginatively. There is no peace, there is no rest. That's what love does. You're consumed inside and out with the object of the thing you love. And man, you gotta love this unknown. You gotta be in love with it, not just like it, not just be curious about it. It's love of wisdom, not love for data, not love for knowledge, not love for Plato, because no one can give it to you. How the hell do you go about teaching that? How do you teach something that can be touched, heard, seen, tasted? How? So, if there are any good teachers out there, the only thing they can really do is bring you to the edge of darkness. And that's the movie that Mel Gibson played in. It's a really, really good movie, Edge of Darkness. And then you have to take a chance, a leap of faith. And it's not really a leap of faith. I think Kierkegaard was wrong. Forgive me. Leap of faith, I mean, you take a chance in the sense that the truth is when you fall in love, there is no turning back. You can't go say, you know what, I'm going to take refuge in information, knowledge. I'm going to read the dialogues. It doesn't work that way. You've been there, you've done that. You just sit and sit and sit. If something comes, fine. If nothing, okay. So what have we talked about today? Goals have to do with who and what you are. And who and what you are depends on your culture and your temperament. Goals can be simple, stupid, complex, and profound. In teaching, there are two people, one who gives, one who receives. If someone has something profound to give, they can give it to someone who's only able to receive simple things. If someone who only gives simple things, if the receiver is profound, there is no teaching. There's conflict and eventually they'll go away. Okay. You fall in love with the unknown. That's philosophy. Love of wisdom. We don't know where wisdom is. You don't know what it is. You're going to have to walk in the dark. And if you're lucky, you'll have glimpses. If you're unlucky, at least you know that information and knowledge is not going to save anyone. And all of it really, I think, that saying by Confucius, at least that's what they've been told. Give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. Show a man how to fish, and you fed him for a lifetime. I think oftentimes when people ask a question, or you have a desire, it's a desire for a fish for that day. And you imagine that just because your belly is full today, you're not going to experience starvation tomorrow. There are lots of people out there who are willing to sell you a fish for today. Everyone is. Showing the fish, on the other hand, is something that once you learn it, no one can take it away from you. Once you learn something really, really well, it's just part of who and what you are. Whenever you're hungry, grab your stick, go to the river, get a fish. Josh.
So you said that psychology is the new religion. I heard a guy who wrote a self-help book. After years later, he's like, I wish I hadn't written it because it was kind of a waste of time. Everything that all the self-help books say are just rehashings of philosophies from religions across the world. I'm wondering if you can take religion, the philosophies of religion, remove the deity aspect of it, and still have that be a worthwhile, still have it be as effective as religion that includes the deity or includes multiple deities.
If your physical body is healthy, you can eat virtually anything and everything. I'm not talking about like dirt and stone and those things, 2x4s, even though some people, for some strange reason, have the system to eat all those things. I must have been maybe 5. We went to a wedding, and part of the ceremony had to do with this magician coming to the stage and eating razors and light bulbs and nails. And then when he was done performing, he said, pray for me because next month I'm going to Hamadan. It's a city in Iran. And I'm going to eat a truck. So some people, are very powerful. Now, when it comes to us, if you have teeth, if you have a healthy digestive system, you don't really care if the food is made in Africa, in Iran, in America, in Bangladesh. Who the hell cares? You can eat. And then your body will tell you what foods just don't fit you well. You'll throw up, you have diarrhea, and then you abstain from those things. I think if you're able to think about things the right way, in other words, if someone has taught you how to learn, because learning is a craft. If you've been trained in learning, then you will have the processing system, the digestive system, to read the Bible without being a religious person and extract from the stories in the Old or the New Testament or any sacred text out there. You can form and shape them, the way that works for you. You don't have to be a believer in Jesus Christ just because you read the New Testament. Just love stories, But when you deal with perhaps a people or an individual who every 10 minutes, expresses an allergic reaction, let me tell you a story about the New Testament. I hate Jesus Christ. Well, there is that. Their ears are closed now. I'm going to spend the next 5 minutes telling a story to a guy who's no longer listening. And so if you have a relatively unhealthy digestive system, the truth is nothing is going to be processed well. I think you have to consider what Jesus did. I'm not questioning one gospel. He goes into Jerusalem, he grabs a stick and he destroys all the shops, and he says, Jerusalem, this used to be a house of God, now it's a den of thieves. And he has no problem looking at the Jews, the Sadducees, the rabbis, and telling them they suck, that this is no longer the temple where people worship God. In fact, if you read the Gospel of Mark, when he's crucified, there is this other temple. Inside the temple, only holy people can go, and I'm not sure who the holy people are. But the moment he dies, that curtain is cut in half, symbolically that now no one needs to go to a temple, to a physical environment to worship. If the kingdom of God lives inside you, figure out where the hell that kingdom is and then worship yourself. If you're like Khalil Gibran and you've come to realize you're a great artist, every time sorrow comes your way, sit, write poetry, do a couple of sketches. If you're a great musician and your father dies, sing a song. If you love nature and your heart is broken, go for a walk. That's how, when you know what you're good at, and it has to be something valuable. So if you can learn things, process things well, almost everything is good for you. Yes? Tell me your name again.
Mauricio.
Mauritius, forgive me. Yeah, Mauricio.
Going back to the poem of Plato, I think.
The form?
The poem.
Oh, the poem.
Yeah.
Okay.
What happens if you just give the guy a fishing rod? Give him a fish or teach him how to fish?
Sorry, say it again.
What happens if you just give him the fishing rod? There's your source of income.
What happens if you just give him a fishing rod?
Yeah.
Well, the fishing rod, does it have strings?
Yeah. Functions.
So, and he knows how to...
He doesn't.
He doesn't
He
know.
wants food. Why will you give him a fish? Or teach him how to fish?
Why wouldn't you?
No. What if I just gave him the fishing rod?
Well, you have to give him a bait. You have to give him some food so he can stick to the needle that's on the string. And don't you want to like tell him, should he go to like the bay or should he just go to Lake Shore?
He knows where I'm fishing.
Well, if he sees you fishing, then yeah, he can stand next to you and he can watch you and he can learn from you. But just to give someone a fishing rod and say, okay, buddy, I'll see you around, you know, what's the use of me giving you like a nail gun, a framing nail gun, if you don't know how to adjust it well, if you don't have a compressor, if you don't have any nails? You have a nail gun, but it needs to be connected to a whole host of different things. And what if I give you the nail gun and you want to like put crown molding in your room? A nail gun is going to destroy the moldings. Your question is really, really good. But for anything to work, you need a whole host of different things. Can I tell you a story? I'm being facetious, but let me tell you a story. Some guy goes to interview for a full-time teaching position. He was to teach biology. And the committee looks at him and says, are you good? Are you a good teacher? And he says, I can be a great teacher. If I have bad students, I can't teach. I can have great students, but if I'm a bad teacher, I can't teach. I can be a great instructor and I can have great students, but if there are no labs where we can dissect things, I can't teach. And what he's saying is, for teaching to take place, you need to be a good instructor, you need to have good students, you also need a lab. And the lab that we have for this class, which is philosophy, is the exchange of ideas. You know, you throw a question, you have some conclusions as to what the answer should or could be, you know, and I'll say a couple of things, other people will say more things, and that's the lab. We exchange ideas, and you refine my thoughts, I refine your thoughts, and we'll both go away still remaining idiots that we are. Not about you, it's mostly about me. Wolf?
I'm trying to formulate a question here, but I guess as Westerners, can we get past sort of the banking method of education? I feel like it kind of relates to everything that we've been talking about.
I think whenever you're in the presence of inspiration, inspiration is like wildfire. If it's allowed to continue and not be forgotten, and if it's protected and nourished. It's like anything else. Imagine that you're married, you have children, life is okay, nothing to complain about, at least not too many things. And then you go to some shop, you say hello to someone, the 2-minute hello turns into a 5-minute conversation, then a 20-minute, then a 30-minute, an hour and a half. And then after 2 weeks, you find yourself completely in love with this person. You're willing to sacrifice your marriage, your children, your job, and you relocate. So is it possible? Yes. The outcome is always unknown. There was I think an American kid who went to India and found himself in the presence of Mahatma Gandhi. And he looks at Gandhi and says, "You're so cool." Not like that, but something like that. "And I want to be like you. What is your religion? So I can follow its rituals, so I can become like you." And Gandhi looks at him and says, "Well, what is your religion?" He says, "Well, I was born a Christian." He says, okay, go back to America, follow the teachings of Christ, and you will end up in the same place that I am. You know. I think if you're exposed to a different environment here in America, and if that environment inspires you and that environment protects inspiration, what's going to happen is there's going to be a conflict between the old you and the brand new you. And there's going to be this adjusting period, and not very many people survive it. And the older you are, the more you have to give up, which means your conflicts are going to be more intense. Right now, you're single. So going to India and following some stupid guru, okay, that would be okay for you. If you were to be in a relationship and having children, it would be a bit more complicated. They either have to come with you, or you look at your kids and say, I love you guys, but I don't love you that much. So you have to have a good amount of detachment inside you. And then it depends on how you're able to deal with guilt, with shame, with your parents calling and harassing you, companion calling and harassing you, your kids looking at you in a very innocent way, and you melting and not knowing what to do, India or Oakland. So as you get older, especially if you're comfortable with your life, if you're comfortable with your life and suddenly someone walks into your life and inspires you, you're going to be forced to look at all the things that bring about comfort, and then you're going to self-doubt and question, why am I comfortable? Because remember, this class, like any other class, and I'm going to, it's an analogy, hypothetically speaking. This class is nothing but a set of advertisements. It's like AT&T on TV advertising a brand new phone. It's like Tesla advertising a brand new car. This is an advertisement of ideas. You have your own ideas about who you are, what is good, what is bad, what is right, what is wrong. You come here with a house of ideas. And I present to you a different set of ideas. Now, like a cell phone, you may become attracted to an idea. And when you come here every single day, that attraction grows. You become pregnant with emotions relating to those specific set of ideas that you get from a class. Well, now you're pregnant, but you also are pregnant with your own life. And you can't serve two masters unless you say, you know what, these ideas are good. I'm going to take them and somehow apply them to my own life. And what you will do is, there is a story about this man who goes on the porch and sees this weird bird. He's never seen a bird that looks like that. He says, well, you look sick. He brings the bird home and shortens the beak a little, cuts the wings a little, and now looks at it, now you look like a bird. And then lets it go. And the point of the story is all of us in this class are old news. And whenever something new comes our way, we cut a little here, and we dye its hair a little bit that way, so it can fit the structure with which that lives inside us and with which we feel comfortable. You can do that, as most of us do. Okay? So, whoever has inspired you has to continuously nourish you. Because you're like an infant. You're going to throw a temper tantrum. They say, listen, I know this is new. There is this adjusting period. You're going to be sad. You're going to be depressed. You're going to be angry. It's okay. This too shall pass. Say, when? Soon. And we're all oriented in this culture. When is it happening? I waited for 2 months. Yeah, well, remember the first day I told you 20 years? 20 fucking years? Are you kidding me? And little by little, as your old life goes away, your new life begins to take form. But it's what we talked about, philosophy. You're pursuing a thing that you can't see. It's not accessible to your 5 senses. Now that's the easy part. Because what happens is after you understand a few things, you want to come back and tell your friends. You want to tell your parents. Maybe you'll have a different set of tattoos you want to desire for people. you know? And even if someone comes to you and says, well, I want a serpent on my arm. Say, well, these are the serpents that Egyptians had. You know? And then you go on like telling them the philosophy of this and that and says, listen, you're boring me. I want my design. Say, listen, your design really sucks. And then you realize you're not making as much money. And then you close up shop and then you take a class and you say, by the way, if anyone in this class likes a serpent on their arm, I'm a professional tattooer. I'll tell you about the symbolism of serpents or cows or dogs. I'll do it for free even. So yeah. Forgive me, I have forgotten what your question was. Oh, thank God. My apologies. If you have any more questions, if you feel you want to ask them, you can. If not, then we can go home and come back next week, Monday, and we can continue our nonsense. That's it. Have a nice day. Have a nice weekend. Stay well and healthy and all that nonsense.